Hello and welcome to another Daily Muppet. In today's video, I think it's pretty obvious what we want to talk about. A few things have happened in the last 48 hours, nothing major. But first and foremost, I want to talk about the fantastic Spurs win 2-0. Third win against top 6 opponents already this season. We've played 4 out of the possible 5, and have won now against Arsenal, Liverpool, and Tottenham Hotspur, while losing to City and having Chelsea at the weekend. So it was a fantastic game. Obviously 2-0. The biggest overall takeaway from it is that the style and system that Ten Hag is trying to implement is clearly showing up more than anything has before. It's been building ever since the City game. I think I mentioned this after the City game. I felt like, look, we cannot play this pragmatic style that he was doing to grind out results after the first 2 kind of disastrous games and losses, but he needed the points, and it felt like they were ready to flip the switch. And then Everton, Ammonia, Newcastle, this game, I actually think each one was better than the last when you compare it to the relative quality of the opponents. And the Spurs game, when you look at it overall, was to me probably the most dominant. I'm not going to say the best game, but it may have been the most dominant United game against a good team that I have seen from United in some time. It's by far, of course, Erik Ten Hag's best game as manager, and it's fantastic. There's really no need to compare it beyond there. From minute 1, it was very dominant, controlling the game, controlling aspects of the game, pressing high, winning the ball high, quick in transition, but also settling in and really peppering them with shots. I mean, at the end of the day, that could have easily ended 5-0. Rashford had a couple chances he probably should be scoring. Lloris made some amazing saves to keep him out, as well as to keep Luke Shaw and others out as well. So it was a huge game, and frankly, there's, you know, there's not much you could say except it was everything went the way it was supposed to. Everybody did their job, but there were standouts individually, but at the same time, they stood out in a lot of respects within the system. It wasn't like they were doing worldy things. They were just doing really well at their job. And that is unique. That is something we haven't seen in a while. That even when it's top performances, it was top performances kind of retained within the system. So I want to talk about it because a certain midfielder did me a solid for my defense of him once again after the Newcastle game and prior in the lead up, when you had practically every pundit, so many people in my comments here, so many people everywhere talking about how one Fred would not be that guy and should not be starting, isn't good enough for a top 6 team, and there was no reason for Ten Hag to play him, and that it should have been McTominay. Let's start. And this is, to me, the most important stat, and the point I tried to make all week when I said, look, there's a reason Fred will start in this team. There's a reason Fred will keep playing this team. And there's a reason he's so important to this team. He brings something you are not getting from anyone else. Best performers by possession 1. Casemiro, fantastic. But look at Fred and Bruno together. That 1-2 combo, both of them pressing high, winning high, 20 ball recoveries between the 2 of them, 36 ball recoveries by our midfield. The 3 of them had more than anyone else on either team. And that is what you get, that balance. Casemiro deep, cleaning up, Fred and Fernandes wreaking havoc. That's how you're going to control games fully. That's how you're going to win games fully. And that's why I said, you know, you stick Eriksen in the team that played against Spurs, it's not the same game. I don't know that it would go as well. I just don't, because what he provides for the right games is hard to replicate. Almost nobody can do it. It's not like you just plug in players who can press, harry, and harass opponents the way that Fred does. His pressing was unbelievable. and led to so many chances, led to so much control and possession. And him and Bruno up there both, and Casemiro, I mean, that entire midfield, like I said, I think it's the most balanced midfield we have. I think it's the most effective midfield we have for these types of games. If you're going against like a Bournemouth in a low block, sure, maybe you don't need Fred in that case. You don't. There's a lot of games you probably won't. But Fred has always shown up in big games. He's always been big in these types of games, and this is why, starting here, and there's a few other stats I'll show under this, but he really, 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 really did his job fully in terms of winning the ball high, pressing high. And remember, possession one is who takes possession. So a lot of it comes from Fred and Fernandes also harrying opponents that ends up losing the ball to Casemiro, who's the cleanup guy. But this is huge. You want to see why we control games? There it is, right there. Possessions one. That is a huge stat. So, that's a big individual one there. Then I'm just going to pull up a bunch of other ones I have here. Oops, not that one right over the top. Starting in the top right, shot creating actions. Bruno Fernandes, 11. Sancho with 8. He actually did pretty well creating, even though I think he had a bit of a shaky first half. Anthony, Casemiro, and Fred all contributing with 4 more, those Brazilians there. So you can see overall 5 highest in shot creating actions. Obviously, we had a ton of shots. Shaw up there with 3 as well. Best performers by key passes, Bruno Fernandes, 9. Sancho, 5. Fred, 3. Our 3 highest performers. This is what you want. You want their forwards. You want, Fred getting involved as well, made in a pass that Rashford should have finished early on in the game, but you want all of them, and Bruno was exceptional again. He's been creating a lot. He's been doing a lot. He didn't get an assist once again, but he got the goal, the second goal, Fred getting the first. It's awesome to see the goals coming from Fred and Bruno. I mean, to see so much contribution from the midfield, and you can get that when the style is right and the system's really in place. Best performance by duo 1. Here I want to highlight a different player. Luke Shaw up there with 5. Casemiro up there with 5. And then best performance by progressive actions. Shaw again the highest on the team with 19. Shaw once again was exceptional, moving into the spaces that he needed to move into, helping United control possession, being proactive in defense. Absolutely class player who's been key to the whole kind of thing as well. So it's really interesting to see that most of the work was done by, and Dalot's up there too with 15, but, and I'll show something here because this is what we needed. This is what we needed to see something improve, that the midfield and the fullbacks are the keys to this team working, and then getting some contributions from Sancho and creating chances was important as well. Here we go. This is the pass map on the right. I think this is awesome. Remember this shape? Let me go back to this. This shape here. It's much more similar, albeit with, instead of Eriksen deep, Fred up high. So it's even more aggressive than how Erik Ten Hag started the year. But look at Dalot and Shaw all the way up there. 2 center backs a bit deep, but here it is. Here it is now. The center backs deep, Casemiro a little bit closer to them. The center backs not quite as deep, I should say. They are higher than they were. Playing a bit higher, Casemiro a bit closer to them. The two midfielders up high, and realize that while it shows them centrally, it's because they were both alternating and moving around back and forth. So the average position is central. That's good. You want 2 8s, they're not going to look left and right when they're switching. So in the center means they did their job perfectly. Both of them held positions perfectly. Look at all the passes into Anthony and out. He actually had support. Dalot was getting much closer to him. Obviously, Rashford's not a striker. He did good in his movements and getting chances, but, he's not a striker. But overall, this is a fantastic shape. It's more of the 2-3-5 you would expect to see in attack. That's going to be very effective. But this is the dominant style of play. Fullback really supporting it. And when you look on the left, league rank for the game, number 1 in key passes, number 1 shot creating actions, barely 4th in expected threat received, 5th in recoveries and opposition action, 4th in box entries, 5th crosses completed, 4th expected threat generated, 2nd incisive passes completed, number 1 in shots, and 4th in touches. And when you look at it overall, this is the last 3 games. This is Everton, Newcastle, and Tottenham. Look at this chart filling up shots, key passes, shot creating actions, recoveries in opposition half, box entries. It's incisive passes. It's all growing. It's getting bigger and bigger every week. Every video I do now showing this. And you can see the position Martinez, Varane, and Casemiro making this triangle. Dalot is finally pushing up higher, where he was stuck deep before. He's getting higher and higher, closer to Anthony. And you can see Fred and Bruno on top of each other, which essentially doesn't mean they're playing the same role. It means they're playing as alternating eights, flipping sides. The biggest thing is this, that I would say needs improvement, is it's a striker. The striker. Rashford, I thought, did really well. His movement, his ability, he did actually a great job in terms of supporting the team. However, sorry, I just don't want to leave any papers out there. However, at the same time, a little more from your striker. He's still better off the left coming in. We know that. That's okay. But Rashford did a really great job. His movement, his work, he had an excellent work rate as well. So, very nice. Very, very, very nice game. It's clear to see, what happens. And I think I've covered the midfield. To me, for any of the games when you're needing that press, when you want to control and dominate against a tough opposition, Casemiro, Fred, and Bruno are your guys. And I honestly think it might be the most balanced and best 11, what we just saw in terms of who can get fit and healthy. Martial in there and Rashford left is, to me, the best. But I think that's our best 11. I think it is. And I think that you go with Casemiro, Fred, Bruno until you stop getting results. But the way I look at it is, and I've said this since the preseason as well, or since we signed Casemiro, rather, Eriksen, Bruno, Fred. Take the 3 and mix them into that 2 to give people rest. Mix them in. But you're going to want a lot of games because it is different. Playing Fred versus Eriksen, it's not about his quality, even though Fred made some great passes and creativity as well yesterday. That's what he can bring. He made mistakes in an earlier game, his first start in 2 months, but his partnership with Casemiro worked very well for Brazil when he's freed up to do this kind of role. And the more progressive and dominant we get, the more you're going to need that. And so in the long term, people have been talking about it, but someone like Enzo Fernandez would be the best player, basically a better Fred. And that's what you want. I'm sticking to that. I know it's, again, like I said, it's sacrilegious. I love Christian Eriksen. I know we need him in a lot of games. But to me, you stick with Casemiro, Fred, and Bruno as long as you can, because it's going to keep working, and the more they play together, the more dominant you're going to be. There is nobody in the entire league who will outwork Casemiro, Fred, Bruno, period. Nobody. There's nobody who's going to have an easy game playing into that midfield. Nobody. That midfield is going to harass, harangue, and dominate virtually any midfield out there, just in terms of work, energy, ball winning, and pressing. And if that's what you want from the game, then you stick with it. And we'll see what Ten Hag does, but I'm sure he understands the value of it. I'm sure he does, as he has shown. But that's my favorite midfield. That's what I was hoping for all year. But, of course, mixing the players in. You stick McTominay in that position deeper. For some games, I think he'd do a good job as well, as he's shown. Moving on from that, the biggest story of the day is Cristiano Ronaldo left the Spurs game early. And initially, it looked like it was because he was not given the nod to come on. However, what turns out is it's quite the opposite. Ronaldo refused to come on versus Tottenham, left early, and has since been axed from the team by Erik Ten Hag as of today with an official statement from the club, something that is unprecedented I have not seen before. He's been removed from first team training with the seniors. He will not be in the squad at the weekend, and we will see what happens after that. So, as I've said for a long time, there are some people who still doubted this to be true, but as I've said for a long time, months now, Cristiano Ronaldo does not want to be at United, and Erik Ten Hag has no interest in him. Erik Ten Hag runs this team, and that's how it should be. It's the first time it's been like that in a long time, that the manager has this much authority and this much backing. But I was just saying to people this morning, because I'll talk about the Glazers in a second, the results he's getting and what he's doing on the pitch get him so much backing from the fans and from players that even the Glazers start when it gets to this point. It's reached this point a little bit with a few managers. There were points where Oli had this much support, this much backing. There were points when Jose did. Less so with Jose. They have to do whatever they say, and they will. And that's why I want to talk about it, because I want to make one thing very, very clear. Cristiano Ronaldo wanted to leave all summer. Well, not all summer, but he only let them know too late. United did not have a lot of options, but United did not want to, the Glazers specifically did not want to mutually terminate his contract. I'm not sure if he wanted mutual termination without getting paid off, and I can understand why they didn't want to do it with a payoff. Yes, the Glazers should have let him go. It excuses nothing. He signed the contract. He stayed. He decided to be there. He made the decision that anybody wanted to leave and left it later in summer. Did not have a club lined up to purchase him. There is no excuse for anybody but Ronaldo. There is nothing. There is nothing. There is no excuse for it. There's nobody to blame for it. Even the Glazers, there's nobody to blame for it. Yes, Joel wanted to keep him and didn't want to let him go for free, but there's still nobody to blame for this kind of behavior but Cristiano Ronaldo. He has a contract. And that being said, with the precedent that now Ten Hag has set, I think it will force the club to look at it. But most importantly, Ronaldo is the one who's going to have to look at it and say, I'm going to have to leave the money on the table if I want to leave this club. And if he's not willing to do that, then fuck it. He doesn't deserve anything if he is not willing to leave the money on the table to leave and go where he wants to go. So if he's willing to tear up the contract, leave the money on the table and go, and even pay back some of the bonuses and things like that were received, then he'll probably be allowed to leave. Or if he can find someone who's willing to pay him and take his contract. Otherwise, he can rot. And if he's not going to actually be a part of the team, then that's all that he gets. But I think that the Glazers will be open to this at this point in time. This is the point where they will start to back the manager in terms of these kinds of decisions and realize they have to, they can't get away with it, because the manager will always be the shield for the Glazers. So now that this has happened, I expect, as I've said, that there's a chance we could bring someone in January if Ronaldo leaves, and the chances of that have just skyrocketed. But it is still going to come down to Ronaldo either finding a club to take him, and this behavior, I'm not sure that helps, or being willing to leave all the money on the table and walk away from his contract mutually terminated. So we will see if he's willing to do that in the ensuing weeks and months. But it's not that long anymore. And finally, leading into Chelsea, I would go with the exact same team. No changes. No changes at all, unless Martial's fit. But even then, yeah, no, I'd play Martial. I'd play Martial with Rashford on the left. But otherwise, no changes. I would do the exact same thing, because you need that energy, you need that ball winning, you need that work up front. And I would keep it at that. So that's what I've got for this. I hope you've enjoyed it. Amazing game. I'm really looking forward to Chelsea. I'll do more of a preview tomorrow with predicted lineups and all of that as more news comes out. But very interesting news on Ronaldo. An excellent game, and let's see what happens. Let's see what happens. Let's see what happens in the next days. But it's very, very, very interesting. And the most important thing is we have a real boss in charge at United again. We really do. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. Let me know your thoughts. What do you think about that midfield? Do you think that's the midfield that should keep playing, continuing into this form? Because I think it's the best that we can play against teams that are going to be tough, that we've really got to harass and work and win the ball back from. Give me your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for watching. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn notifications on. See you later.